Hello everybody and welcome back to another video this week. I'm just going to jump straight into things. We are going to be doing a tier list of roster moves. Now this is basically me going to be looking through the Pacific teams. I plan to do EMEA and maybe Americas a little bit later on. But the idea is I'm going to be looking through the rosters. I'm going to be giving you a rough idea of what teams I think need to be making a roster move, what teams need to destroy their roster, and what roster is perfect, which I actually think with Pacific, maybe nobody's going to fall within that bracket, which is a little bit depressing, but I guess we can just start off going down the line. Now, Gen.G is a little bit more of an interesting one. So, obviously their roster managed to make it into that sort of playoff stage, but never really had the greatest of runs through, losing to the likes of Team Secret and I don't know, never really quite living up to, I guess, I wouldn't even say the hype. It's a bit of an odd one. I'd say they're a team that could definitely do with a roster move. Like, I think the likes of King and Meteor have proven to been there, but after what was a fairly slow season, I definitely think, like, maybe the likes of TS or maybe GodDead or someone is going to be on that chopping block, because they definitely had some sort of like very, very rough games, and I do think that someone like Meteor definitely deserves to be on a solid team. He'd also be someone that you could see moving around to maybe one of the top rosters. Like, I think the Meteor has still proven himself to be a pretty fierce duelist in a lot of these matches, but I think Gen.G would have been expecting to compete a little bit more with this roster. So I don't know. I think I'd say they need a change. I don't know if one change won't do. I definitely think that even just a single change could make a difference to Gen.G, but I think that just in terms of only really having these two players in terms of firepower, not quite enough. So I'd probably say that they need at least themselves one. Talon is a peculiar one, because Talon, they finished lower down than Gen.G. So you're thinking, Tom, honestly, like, they need a roster move. Obviously, the greatest roster move would probably be bringing back Scary, but I don't think that's going to be something that's possible. They had an alright season, but yeah, losing to Gen.G, I feel like a lot of their roster moves or roster problems came from people not necessarily playing the right roles. I think if we go to, like, Padipan and look... Well, I don't want to look at all. That's not really helpful. I'd love like a 180 days. Can you give me 180 days? Because you start looking back to like earlier in the season, the dude just played absolutely everything. His Harbor didn't look particularly great. Then he played Gecko and Breach this week. Wait, is that the same? That is the same match. Let's just go a little bit further forward. What was he playing here? Astra and Killjoy. As we go a bit forward again, Jet and Raze. Like, it just seemed like throughout the season they didn't really know what they were doing. Also, Sushi Boys, I feel like that's all I really need to say. He didn't play much, and I think that a lot of that was, like, obviously I think the young guys in the likes of Garnets and Jit Boys I think are fantastic, but I actually don't know if they need a roster move. I think the thing would it be an upgrade? I think that's where I'm kind of looking with this one, because it's like, I think that, like, either they have to kind of, like, obliterate the roster, which I don't really want to see happen. I think I'll put them in need of change, but the change might actually be just sticking to a 5. I feel like we found that, like, 6-man rosters just don't really work. It's something that, like, I don't know, for me, just seems to be more problematic. I don't know what's going on with their logo, but you know who that is. And it actually leads me nicely onto Team Secret, because Team Secret are a roster where I'm still very much unsure what I think of this team. Like, you go back through their results, they have wins over the likes of DRX and PaperX. Obviously, I think this was PaperX. Yeah, this was before something came into the roster, so obviously it's a little bit of an odd one. Had a bit of resurgence towards the end, I'll be honest. I thought they were going to win this game. I thought that was going to be the ultimate comeback. And they definitely have some older players within their team, like Dubstep, but he's still putting up numbers. He's still a decent Jet Raze. It's just a question of, is there another player within the Philippines that might be able to bring in more? And I have to admit, I'm not going to pretend to be the most well-versed on some of the young players up and coming throughout the entirety of Pacific. I didn't have time to watch a lot of Ascension, so feel free to leave some comments down below. I feel like I'm just sticking a lot of teams in need of change. I don't know if... Oh, I might do this, which seems controversial as shit, because I don't know if one... I don't think I can just stick everybody and need a change. Obviously, later on, I feel like it's going to be difficult. Maybe I'll even do this. Now, that sounds mental. I definitely think that these two should probably be here. I don't know if it'll be an upgrade with a lot of the players on Talon, which is crazy because they didn't do that well at the end of the season, but I just have a feeling that if they fix their issues, that team could be really good. Again, tell me if I'm just being crazy because I feel like this is really dumb. And there's going to be teams down the end. And I'm actually going to stick Zeta there as well. Because it's the exact same way I feel about Zeta Division. They made it to Champions, which ultimately I think for Zeta is pretty good. Like, they were a team that is ultimately the Japanese super team. They've stuck true to being that Japanese team. So it's not that surprising that they haven't managed to, like, win an entire championship. The Japanese scene is very much still growing. But if they are sticking to this mantra, now that you might be looking at this and going, Tom, there's definitely players that they could pick up. Like, there's definitely players within Pacific. There's going to be roster moves on other teams. But is there a Japanese player that they can pick up that would massively upgrade their roster? Because, like, realistically, like, I'm looking at, for example, Scars, who almost made it. They brought in a couple of Russian players. One of the reasons that they seem to do decently well. It's like even one of their players has actually already been made inactive. I don't know if there's anybody Japanese that they would be able to bring into the fold that would actually upgrade their team. So I'm going to stick them in. Would it be an upgrade as well? Now, unfortunately, for more sort of depressing reasons, they have to go here. Because as many of you will already know, and some of you may not, Juicy's actually not allowed to play. So, yeah, the young sort of superstar that was on Bleed isn't allowed to play at least this year in the VCT, so he's going to go do his national service. Obviously, he was fantastic. Like, he was one of the players that was a highlight, 17 years of age, and a lot of the time was just absolutely slamming. I think Scary has been fantastic as well. So, it becomes quite difficult, and I'm not sure if, I don't know, does Neff need to do his service? I'm not sure. I'm not going to pretend like I know. So that's one of the rougher things with this team in general, is you are going to have players that have to disappear off and do their service. But yeah, if it was without that, I would have actually said no. Like, I wouldn't have said this team is perfect. I probably would have put them here. But because Juicy is gone, they are forced into a change. I always like the idea of teams that just get promoted to actually at least give themselves a little bit of time. And with the new season, I don't know if people know already, but the new season, the way it's going to work, there's a 2-week tournament that qualifies to Masters 1. That's perfect for any team that thinks about making roster changes. Now, obviously, it's more dependent. When's the roster lock? I don't know when that is. So, if there's a roster lock like last time that lasts a very, very long time, maybe that's not going to work out. But realistically, I wouldn't have wanted to see Bleed make a change. I think they could have done some real damage. They were relatively clean in their run through. Obviously, a loss to D+, who I think have now disbanded, right? It's hard to keep up with all of the news. Obviously, Champions has just ended. But I wouldn't have wanted to see them make a change. Do I know who they should get to replace Juicy? No. I've got absolutely no idea. I think it's going to be quite difficult to actually, like, sort of replace him as a player, a young superstar. But I do think they have the background stuff to do it. Legia are obviously very well known from Counter-Strike. And also Impression. I like seeing Impression actually working in the management roles now. So he's definitely going to be someone who's able to spot out young talent. But as said, unfortunately, they do need a change. Now, as this video began, I'm sure many of you sat there and watched and knew that this team was going here. If you've ever seen my Discord or you've seen any of the streams, it's not one change won't do. I can't see DFM managing to somehow make this one work. Like, the roster, I don't know why I've just opened that up and then done this. The roster struggled to win a map the entirety of the season. There wasn't a particular player where I was like, yeah, you know what, actually, they're pretty good. Like, I think Suggest, I'd maybe try and keep Suggest, but even then you'd look at, like, the more, okay, those stats are brutal, but that's only 2 maps. They continuously switched up their roster. They continuously switched up roles. Like, Zimfree, for some reason, playing Raze here made no sense to me. He was a great initiator on his old team. I don't know why that changed. They couldn't find any reason or rhyme why anything would work. At one point, they stopped playing Suggest. I think there might have been something else there, a reason that he couldn't play. But again, like, there's absolutely no way this roster should be kept. I think, as I said, maybe you can make an argument to keep Suggest, but even then, in some of the matches, he was bad. I don't think Takage was really up to the standard, unfortunately. And he still seems to play like a duelist, even though he's playing these other roles. I'd say that Soldam, of all the players, looked okay at times, but I still don't think he's up to the standard of the league. And there's a lot of very talented Jet players, so I'd start again. I'm sorry, DFM. Start again. Now, this one's a little bit more difficult. I wouldn't say the roster is perfect, but I do... I can't leave Talon on the same place as DRX. But I don't just want to have the... I'm doing this for now. I'm doing this for now. I'm sorry, this one's stacking up. I don't think there's many teams that one change won't do. I'm leaving them there. I gave my reasons earlier. I feel like this is going to be one of the most scuffed lists of all times, and people are probably going to be quite angry at me. But I genuinely look at this team and go that, like, you know, King deserves better, Meteor deserves ever. Screw it. One change won't do. Which is mad because they did better than both of these teams, but my logic is flawed. DRX, would it be an upgrade? I think that's the toughest thing with this roster. We've already seen it once where they tried to bring in Foxy9. They still have Foxy9 as well. So, yeah, that's going to be one of those things. Obviously, for DRX, they had a pretty good run. Lost to Fnatic, lost to EG, champions, and, well, probably the expected champions. They managed to beat Loud, beat Na'Vi. Obviously, Loud ended up having a pretty good tournament as well. I don't think they're quite at the place they'd like to be. Obviously, the goal for DRX is always going to be to win tournaments. But the trouble is like, who are you replacing? Who are you getting? Like, because you look at their results, I don't think there was a... Like, we've already seen them try and replace Zest once with Firepower. It didn't work. And they've always had a bad matchup versus the likes of EG. They'll dominate still within their region. And the other thing as well is, if you let any of these players go, they're going right into a competitor. Like a T1, a Gen.G. Like, if you... Obviously, you're not dropping a Marco. I don't think you can drop a Stax or a Buzz. And RB... That's the thing. There's no one. There's no one they can drop. It should stay here. They're definitely the... Would it be an upgrade? I don't think anybody... PaperX probably would have gone here. But obviously... Well, I could put them... They're in need of change, but they're not... Actually, no. They're in would it be an upgrade because they've been forced to make a change, but it won't be an upgrade. I'm sorry. Whoever they get, it won't be an upgrade. These are really difficult. I want to put... There's a global... There's so many places I want to put them. Because, like, Global Esports... I really liked their roster. Like, I think they played well. And I think, like, them finishing where they did, I don't really think does them justice. The funniest thing as well is that they went positive in rounds and Zeta went negative in rounds because they were never really smashed. They always played quite close versus a lot of teams. Now, I'm definitely biased because I do like this team. I like the players. I think, like, Aaron should be staying. I think he's a fantastic IGL. I think there's also another one, like, RRQ I'd put here, and the only thing I'd say is if they can get Monyet, they should get Monyet. Because, like, again, you look at, like, the region they're playing from. Let's stick to GE. I'll get to that in a minute. We'll move them back down here for now. But, yeah, I think that GE definitely... Like, the problem is, okay, SK Rossi was inconsistent. I don't think anybody can argue that. I know, I'm sorry, SK Rossi fans. I know you love him, and some of you, I know you love to hate him. It's definitely a weird parallel when it comes to GE fans. Some would die for the man, and some would send him horrible messages. There seems to be a weird mix. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because it's his first season. Like, a lot of other players, like, you look at the DRX players, the T1 players, they've all played at a Tier 1 level before. SK Rossi came in, and... This was his first season out, And he had ups and downs. When he was up, he was unreal. Like, you look at the game they played versus Gen.G, he was an absolute menace. Throughout both maps, he played superb, especially when it came to Lotus. He was fantastic. It's what GE are looking for, because I think it would be a shame for GE not to have some sort of Indian representation. I don't know if, like, putting Lightning Fast into the main roster would really help them too much. I think that of the two, SK Rossi's definitely the better choice. I don't want to see anything happen to Monyet or Aaron. Like, I think both of them are needs. Like, you could see the structure of the team building as they went along. I think Bartzy was very good as well, and as was Texture. But we've also then had this article rumoring that they are expected to replace SK Rossi. The question I have is with who? And that's where things become a little bit more difficult, because it's like, okay, I can assume it's not going to be someone from India. I think if you were going to do that, you're going to keep SK Rossi, which again would be a massive shame. But then I'm sort of questioning, do they then move away from what makes global esports, which is the sort of massive fandom they have behind them? I don't know. So this one's definitely going to be an interesting roster. I think if they want to challenge for a title, then probably one change won't do. I think you may need to do a little bit more, but I wanna move them to here. I think that they maybe need a change. I don't know necessarily where it will come from. Maybe to have a little bit more structure supporting SK Rossi, because Texture definitely, you look at the way he played, and it was definitely more leaning in towards like an individualistic Sentinel. Like, he didn't necessarily, I think he had great individual aim, but he still kind of seemed like he was just playing a duelist on the Sentinel, which I guess nowadays was a little bit more common. I think that as well, like, you saw some high individual level from the likes of Bartzy and Monyet, but the only true, in my eyes, support player was Aaron. Like, I think he was the only one that actually had that sort of ability to properly set up SK Rossi. So maybe the change comes in a more supportive element if that's the direction they want to go. But I do think if they want to compete, they need a change, and maybe even one change won't do. But I'll leave them here for now just because I like them and I'm a little bit biased. T1. T1 again is another tough one, because I think regionally they looked very, very good. Like, if you pick out some of the Pacific matches, incredibly close. Like, you saw Zeta have a great performance here. Sire player, if they get rid of Sire player, they've lost the plot. I absolutely lost the plot. The only thing with this team is roles. Number one, the fact I still feel like Ban is a duelist in disguise. I'm not sure he's necessarily the best controller I've seen. When they went into like double duelist comps, it looked a lot better, and I think that that's something that they have to think about going forward. Do they need to pick up someone who's going to be more fierce on a controller and actually, again, just have that extra structure? Carpe's a weird one, because when it came to the international events, he had his moments, but I don't think he was necessarily as good as we kind of hoped him to be. Again, this is literally it for his Valorant career, so I do think that you have to give him the benefit of the doubt of maybe a little bit more time. But we are talking about T1 looking to compete on an international level. I'd say that maybe the change I'd look towards is someone like Ban, which, again, is a shame, but I think he'll definitely find himself on another team. So I'd do that. And then this one, the RRQ might actually be... No, I don't want to... No, I can't move them back down? Okay. Well, let's put them up here for now. The roster's definitely not perfect. Sorry about that one. Sorry, Ewok. I didn't mean to upset you, but it's true. But they definitely improved towards the end of the season. They were another one where I feel like they came a long way. Taking a map off DRX, being global, being Talon, making it in towards this sort of like playoff stage, and actually, like, they never looked out of a game. Like, wow, as you could see. So I might actually put them here. Which, again, I feel like is a bit peculiar, considering I've got Gen.G down here. I don't know what it is. I just think Gen.G... I think it's because of the players Gen.G have in Meteor and King. I think they should be competing at the top, and they're not. So, Gen.G fans, sorry. I don't think they really deserve to be down here, but I've created some stupid topics. They definitely don't deserve to be down here. But, I think that they need a little bit more because of where I expect them to be. I expect them to be getting to international events, and they're not. It's same with, like, a lot of these teams, like RRQ for me, the reason I'm saying would it be an upgrade is because I think it's difficult to choose who to get rid of. Because I don't feel like there was a blatant problem. Again, I'm still not sold on a 6-man roster. I don't think it works. But you do have a lot of talent within this team. A lot of young talent at that. So, like, I'm really, really impressed by Elmi Moore. I think he had a fantastic season. I think his Sheriff might actually be one of the best in the world, which is saying a lot. I think that they've got decent supportive elements, decent structure, some good, like, experienced players as well, in the likes of Flipshider. So, I don't actually know if it would be an upgrade for them to make roster changes. Now, we're hearing rumors that, like, there's some serious reforming when it comes to Pacific, so I'll definitely come back and do an update and see how wrong I was. But this is where I'm leaving it. DFM need to change everything. I think Gen.G should make a couple of changes. I think all these rosters, obviously, this one has to make a change. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made them. I probably would have put them here. PaperX have to make a change. DRX right now are the closest I am to putting here. Do you know what? For the culture, I'm going to put them here. I don't think they should be making a change. I think we've already learned that this team's not going to be getting much of an upgrade from it. I don't know who they could pick up from within Pacific that would be a direct upgrade. So I'm going to put them at the top. It's not perfect. I'm almost tempted to change this title, but Zeta, again, I'm looking at, like, purely Japanese players. I don't know if it'd be an upgrade. And the same for RRQ. I think a lot of young talent structurally getting there. I think with some work, they could be a competitor. Talon, Talon, I could genuinely have placed in every single... Not that one. Every single one, other than the top one, I could have put Talon in. Because they seem to have the right players, but it just doesn't work half of the time. And I think that's actually the same for Team Secret. I wouldn't say nuke the roster, but I think I could have put them in any of these three. But let me know where you would put them. Let me know where I am wrong. In fact, I may even link the... I may link this tier list. Maybe put it on Twitter. I'll put it on Twitter after the video's out. So if you want to send me how stupid I am, and you could let me know what I've done wrong. Either way, I will likely be doing this for EMEA and Americas. So let me know what you think. Maybe in advance. Maybe I'll read some of your comments out as we do the video. And also make sure to like and subscribe if you did enjoy. Of course, I have been Tombizz, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.